Venus and star blessings, everybody. Welcome back. First of all, let me just say that I am very, very touched by everyone's comments on my previous video. They really are just very touching to me. I am quite a sensitive person, so I do feel people's energies, people's thoughts and feelings and comments very, very strongly, whether they are positive or negative. But in this case, they happen to be really positive, and I appreciate all the love that you are sending to me and to the world and to the atrocious acts that are taking place. I think, as I said in my video, I think it's really important that we all, take a position of love in what is happening. And please know that nothing goes unnoticed by the divine. And so when we bring truth and love, and we come from a place, from a clean heart, it all matters. It all is received and seen. And it's really important to remember that. So thank you once again for all your beautiful comments. They are very much appreciated. And also thank you to those of you that hit the super thanks button, which means that you donated something to me. I'm, very, very grateful to those of you who did that. So thank you. Also, once again, just want to say that my classes are open for those that are interested in joining. And once again, they are running as 10-week blocks. However, you don't need to commit to the entire block. You can just choose a specific topic that you might be interested in. So just email me if you want to know more about that, and I can give you further information. And also, of course, if you are interested in having some type of reading with me, there are many, many different types of readings we can explore together, depending on your own needs. That's what it's always based on. I'm just a vessel, a vehicle of God's words, of God's language, the stars. So I'm just very privileged to have been given this path that I never take for granted, and I always am in appreciation. So thank you again to everyone. So today I want to talk about Scorpio season, just a little bit from a different perspective to my last video, because my last video was on the upcoming lunar eclipse, which, yes, was primarily focused on what's happening in the world, because as I said in that video, I'm a humanitarian type of soul and individual, and I care what happens to the earth, and I care what happens to people. And I am not one of those people that can just pretend that nothing is going on and everything is fine, because it's not. And I think we all have, as I said, a role to play. We all have a responsibility. And I'm just, speaking through the astrology to acknowledge and address and point to the astrological correlations and symbolism, but more importantly, to spread unity and love. That's my main purpose, really. That's my main desire, really. I have many desires, just like all of us, of course, but that is an important fundamental desire for me. That's what I just feel that's what God's imprint in me has stimulated, really, since I was born. Now, Scorpio season, and I'm a Scorpio Venus star point. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Scorpio Venus star point today, because there'll be many, many of you who have Scorpio on the wheel, meaning that, well, the Scorpio star point started in November of 1926. So, pretty much all of us have Scorpio on the wheel, unless any of us are on the earth that were born before that, which, will be some people that are in that much older age. But for the most part, most of us have Scorpio on the wheel, meaning that we have 5 Venus star points, which creates a pentagram. that is superimposed on our chart. And the 5 Venus star points will be at very specific points in our chart, and we will have a star point at the head of the pentagram, which is your primary Venus star point, and then we'll have 4 remaining star points, which create the 2 arms and the 2 legs on the pentagram. So there'll be many of you that have the Scorpio Venus star point as the head of your pentagram, which is the main Venus star point for you. I'm one of those people. Now, it'll either be a morning star or an evening star, and those are very, very different unto themselves. The morning star goddess and the evening star goddess are completely different. There's also the matter of whether Venus was visible or invisible at your birth. That's a huge pointer to all Venusian things about you and your life. And it is Ruman's program, this one here, that enables me to see whether Venus was visible or invisible. Here's a chart. This chart is actually for Friday, December 17th, 2021. I was just looking at some things prior to starting this recording, so that's why this chart has this date. So this is a Babylonian chart, as it's commonly known. This is Ruman Kolev's program, and he has written this program himself, and he has created in the program the algorithms and formulas and whatnot for this program to ascertain when a planet becomes invisible and when it goes visible again, which are commonly referred to as heliacal phases. And these details are very, very important, something that's not really looked in modern astrology at all, really, for the most part. But if Venus was invisible or visible at your birth, that's a very important factor to know. The Venus star points in your chart, all 5 of them, where they are located, which is the head of your pentagram. These are all really rich teachings and really rich information to what your soul, is currently evolving through, really. And also this program shows us, I'll just show you here. This panel here shows us, well, we're looking at evening star there. You can look at either evening or morning. Let's just go to morning. So this will show us when, relative to morning star phase, when Venus first became visible, the 2nd time, 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, and then it just repeats again, because the pentagram, the cycle of Venus, repeats every 8 years, and it moves back around about 1 or 2 degrees every 8 years. So that's what that's showing us. And also, if we click that, it puts in the pentagram for us. Now, this pentagram is different to the 5 Venus star points that we normally talk about. That is the position of the 5 Venus star points at our birth. This particular pentagram is showing us Venus's invisibility or visibility at the 5 different places that occurred, for example. So these are features that only Ruman's program has, as a matter of fact. So these are parts of the things that I'm including in my work and in my readings and teachings and so forth. So if you want to know more about that, again, reach out. So Scorpio is a feminine sign, fixed in quality, feminine sign, water element. And Scorpio, from an evolutionary perspective, correlates to the soul. It is one of the most intense vibrations, frequencies, archetypes, energies on the wheel. So many of you obviously will be Scorpios, or have other personal planets in Scorpio, or other planet. You might have Pluto in Scorpio. You're of the generation with Pluto in Scorpio, etc. All of you will have a Venus Scorpio star point, and depending on whether it's a receiving arm, receiving foot, giving foot, which is what they are referred to, or whether it's the head of your pentagram, all of those different positions will describe something different, obviously. If it's the head of your pentagram, then, you know, it takes priority, as it were, because it describes a deep soul, psychological, emotional imprint in what you are here to give, actually, what you are here to give from your soul. And what gifts you are here to give, actually, because the Venus star point describes our gifted, our inherent gifted nature and talents, and how we are here to cultivate that, express it, and give it to the world and to those around us. So if you have the Venus star point as the head of your pentagram, then Scorpio season basically animates and energizes that Scorpio Venus star point, which of course happens every year when the sun goes into Scorpio, and every year when Mercury goes into Scorpio, and every 2 years when Mars goes into Scorpio. Now, you can see here that we have the sun in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, and Ceres in Scorpio. Now, the asteroids run through the zodiac, most of them anyway, every 4 years. So the last time Ceres was in Scorpio was around 4 years ago. Mars comes to Scorpio every couple of years, and of course the Sun and Mercury every year. So we have a very significant lineup of Scorpio energy. Further to that, I checked out some other things as well, and there's an asteroid called Cassandra, and some of you have heard me speak about her in the past. And I find she tends to show up when there's, for lack of a better word, just very, very important, big events happening on the earth. She's currently in Scorpio, actually, and she's late in Scorpio because she entered Scorpio, let me see, on the 30th of August. So she's been in Scorpio since the end of August, and she will be in Scorpio till around about mid-November. So we've still got, you know, about 3 weeks left of Cassandra in Scorpio. So she's sitting somewhere around here, basically. So she's also in Scorpio. You just cannot see her in the chart because Solar Fire does not have her programmed in their program. But basically, she's sitting at the sort of last decan of Scorpio. And she is the goddess of prophecy, basically. So very simply put, she represents issues with belief and credibility, trustworthiness, judgments about whether to believe others, prophetic gifts and knowledge, or foreknowledge rather, offering counsel and rejection of advice. Now, the backstory to her is this. She was the daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba of Troy, an attendant in the temple of Apollo. The god became enamored. Sorry if I've pronounced that incorrectly. Sometimes my pronunciation is not correct because I'm bilingual. Well, I speak 3 languages actually, but anyway, English is not my first language. So Apollo basically was attracted to her. I think that's, you know, what that's indicating, and attempted to woo her with the gift of prophecy. But when Cassandra still refused his advances, he spat in her mouth and cursed her to speak truly but never be believed. Cassandra warned her countrymen not to accept the gift of the Trojan horse, but by this time he had acquired a reputation for insanity, and her warnings were disregarded. After the sack of Troy, Cassandra was brought home as a prize of war and concubine for the Greek king Agamemnon of Mycenae. In the absence of Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra. Again, sorry for my average pronunciation of some words. Enraged by the sacrifice of their daughter, Iphigenia. So a lot of these words are Greek. I'm much more comfortable speaking to them in Greek, actually. To ensure the success of the war, had begun an affair with Aegisthus, a cousin of the king. Together, the two plotted the death of the king and his concubine, killing him in his bath, slaughtering Cassandra at his side. So, look, most Greco-Roman, Greek-Roman myths contain, really severe violence and bloodshed and, killing and passion. And, they're very intense myths, actually. But they tell us a lot about these archetypes, the potential manifestation of these archetypes, the psychological imprints and how they might describe, events that occur at any given time. Fundamentally, however, what this asteroid speaks to is that, there could be there could be someone or, a group of people, that are trying to bring truth, shine truth to a situation, and they are not being believed, right? Because basically, the myth describes that because he spat in her mouth and cursed her to speak the truth but to never be believed, well, that tells us that when she does speak the truth in prophecy, that credibility and trustworthiness and so forth are not granted. So it brings about matters, scorpionic matters. So we're talking about Sun in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, Ceres in Scorpio, Cassandra in Scorpio. What does Scorpio do? It basically gets to the bottom of anything that is going on. It will probe to the absolute hilt, to the end, to get to the bottom of anything that is going on. It wishes and seeks to uncover, pull every single layer apart and pull every single facade off and peel it all off, peel it back to its actual truth and origin and core essential nature. So there'll be a lot of things going on, spoken and otherwise, in different ways. On the one hand, it'll be deceptive things, and on the other hand, it will be matters of truth that will be struggled to be seen, accepted, or understood for what it is. So yeah, I just think it's very interesting that Cassandra is there. There's some sort of prophecy trying to come through, and it's not being seen, as it were. But I think with all this Scorpio, the rest of the Scorpio planets, things will be uncovered. Then again, Mars is invisible at the moment, so there's a lot of hidden agendas and desires and motivations and things going on behind the scenes. As I said, even in my previous video on the lunar eclipse, I mentioned, Mars being invisible and that it being a signature that describes hidden motivations. Mars is, many things, but it certainly corresponds to one's desires and motivations. When we apply that to collective narratives or themes or particular groups and so forth, that implies that what is appearing on the surface is just a microscopic sort of level of what's really at play behind the scenes here. The other thing I noticed is the goddess Lilith. Now, she's a very complex character, but quite apart from that, there are also, I think there's 4 different Liliths that one can examine in the chart, right? And one of them is actually this one here, which is, this is the true position of Lilith. So most astrologers, most programs will have it set to the mean position, which is just an average position. Average means average, right? The true position means true. Now, the true position, you know, jumps around in such a way that it makes it very difficult to work with, but not impossible. It just means you've got to do a lot more work. So most people just resort to the average position because it's much easier to work with, meaning that she'll just move in a, you know, specific sort of timing and order through every sign in the zodiac, whereas her true position, she'll jump into Virgo, then she'll jump back into Leo, she might jump back into Cancer, jump back into Leo, back into Virgo, then she'll jump into Libra, and she can do that in a space of just, you know, weeks or months. It's very what's the word, irregular, just very irregular. But anyway, that's one component of Lilith there from the sort of astronomical, if you like, calculations. But there is an asteroid called Lilith as well, which you cannot see in the chart because, again, this program just does not have that programmed within the program itself. But I can tell you that the asteroid Lilith, which is in a different sign, a different position in the zodiac to the true position of Lilith, because this is an asteroid in a different part of the zodiac, has a different timing, is just in usually a different sign to the true position of Lilith. And the asteroid is actually, let me see, already in Scorpio, has been there for some time, and will complete her journey in Scorpio by the end of this month. So I'm pointing this out because we've got Cassandra, that's a feminine deity. We've got the asteroid Lilith, another feminine deity, both in Scorpio. Ceres, a feminine deity, which really connects to Mother Earth. And then we've got these guys down here. Mercury is neutral, can be both feminine and masculine, but most certainly Mars and the Sun are masculine gods, if you like. However, Scorpio is a feminine archetype. So there's an abundance of feminine energy going on, including all these guys up here, you know, well, Moon in Pisces, okay, that's, you know, that's going to move off very quickly. But Saturn in Pisces, that's feminine. Pluto in Capricorn, that's feminine. You know, Venus in Virgo, feminine, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of feminine energy at the moment, so it's pulling us into our inner structure, nature, psyche, world of emotions, assessing, analyzing, feeling things from very, very deep, especially with all this Scorpio energy. We're always asked to to go through some type of transformation and some type of metamorphosis and some type of examination of where our soul is at the moment from the point of view of our own evolutionary journey. Every time we have planets in Scorpio, that's the invitation to go within and assess our own growth, development, evolution, assess actually our own fears as well. And also, Scorpio speaks to our personal limitations. Personal limitations. So given that it corresponds to that, when the planets are in Scorpio and they invite us into that inner domain, which is very close to the soul, we can say, there's an opportunity to basically to assess our own limitations and growth, both to have a look at how much we've grown and become more aware and more in touch with our own personal limitations and how we might grow further based on those. Some of the other words, key words that we can describe with Scorpio, of course, there's many: intensity, violence, evil, destruction, paranoia, sexual violence, darkness, secrets, taboo, alchemy, metamorphosis, shared resources, resourcefulness, power, powerlessness. So power and powerlessness, that are just the same thing, but with two different faces. That those themes, you could say, absolutely correspond to Scorpio. Corrupt power, manipulation, loss, abandonment, fear of intimacy, fear of vulnerability, obsessions, compulsions, betrayal, spying, spy, fear of entrapment, commitment, loyalty. These are all Scorpio keywords, if you like. So Jeffrey Wolf Green says that Scorpio Pluto correlates to the soul itself. The archetype here is metamorphosis linked with evolution. A metamorphosis is a caterpillar to a butterfly, a different, unrecognizable outcome as opposed to gradual transformation. Scorpio rules genetics, and thus metamorphosis is related to mutation, out of which comes evolution. It represents the psychology of consciousness, awareness of motivations and intentions, compulsions and obsessions. It is the deepest unconscious sense of security. I don't know if you understand that, but that's a very important statement there, the comment where he says it is the deepest unconscious sense of security, because Pluto in the chart for all of us, which correlates to the soul, speaks to our deepest unconscious securities, which is why wherever Pluto is located in our chart, that is where we that's the area, in other words, the house that it's in, sign that it's in, and so forth. Of course, aspects and everything else comes into it too. But wherever Pluto is, that's where we naturally gravitate towards, because that is what we know. That the comment where he says it represents the deepest unconscious sense of security, he says that because Pluto in the chart speaks to where the soul has been, whether that's been 10 lifetimes or 1,000 lifetimes. It is when something is familiar, right, it creates this sense of security. It's the unfamiliar, the unknown, that triggers insecurity. And on the face of it, for the most part, most people need to feel secure in their lives, so they will create circumstances, situations that provide what appears to be what appears to create a sense of security. It's Uranus that takes us into the field of insecurity, because it's the field of the unknown. So from the point of view of deepest unconscious sense of security and how we gravitate to what we know, what we are familiar with, it's well, from the point of view of Scorpio, because Scorpio is a fixed sign, and it also has attachment issues, just like its polarity Taurus does. And there can be codependency matters with Scorpio as well. But the polarity Taurus always tries to bring into some type of balance for us the process of working through the fears of emotional abandonment, betrayal, and so forth, and becoming more sustained Taurus, grounded Taurus in our own self, in our own abilities. It invites us to become less codependent. It invites us to build our own strength and self-worth and ability to survive on our own. That's Taurus. So every time we have this Scorpio energy activated through the zodiac, you know, we go through these metamorphoses, if you like. Sometimes they're small passages, sometimes they are much larger passages, depending on who we are, our story, and what's going on with our chart at any given moment, depending on our consciousness, depending on our point of evolution. But no matter where we are in our own process of becoming and evolving and transforming, Scorpio always invites us to take a look at our personal limitations, what we further need to work on and evolve through, what we may need to release, die to. And it's for the most part with Scorpio, it happens very much on an inward plane, on an inner level. Of course, there can be events that manifest externally, but those events that manifest externally, well, there's two different pathways, I think, because the more unconscious somebody is, the more they will project their own unconscious material onto the external, and then the external animates and activates certain conditions, events, and so forth, in order for that person to be invited into or confronted with what needs to be transformed. However, the more conscious and aware someone is, the more they may just be more in touch with it from an inner plane, an inner space, and just perhaps work with it more inwardly and not project it as much on the exterior, which would possibly imply less cataclysmic or challenging events on that external level, because the person is so in touch with their own soul, with their soul's journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak, and they are just processing and chipping away at that and working and embodying and trying their best to work through it, right, with as much consciousness as they have. So it just depends, you know, on the individual, for sure. So if we can just put aside for a moment the chaos that's happening on the earth plane, and we just look at our own journey, our own process of growth and evolution, we can really work with this energy to enhance our own level of consciousness. Depending on where the Venus star point is in your chart, and whether it's the head of your pentagram or not, and whether it's a morning star or an evening star, these Scorpio planets will energize that Venus star point. And because the Venus star point speaks to what you are here to give, how you are gifted, how you will bring that to the world, then these Scorpio energies, as I said before, they can be very, very helpful, because they energize, you know, they animate and energize that Scorpio Venus star point. So if you're not aware of your Venus star points, and if you're not aware whether you're a morning star, evening star, and if you don't know where your Scorpio Venus star point is, you know, I can help you with all of that. So just reach out. But let's just say that you do know, and let's just say that the Scorpio Venus star point is the head of your pentagram. Because the Scorpio Venus star point, for all of us, the main one, which is the head of the pentagram, for some people, it takes, you know, it can take a long time to understand their own Scorpio Venus star point, for instance, and how they might want to bring life to that, as it were, from the point of view of what they are here to do with it, how they are here to give that energy to others. Now, take it back to basics. A Scorpio Venus star point is very much going to highlight a soul that is an agent of transformation of some kind, because Scorpio is the archetype that corresponds to transformation. And even the Sun in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, the inner planets, in other words, the faster moving planets, they all have the potential to act as an agent of transformation, or as an agent of evil, for that matter. Like I said in my lunar eclipse video, Jeffrey Wolf Green discusses in his book called Lucifer, the influence of evil in the horoscope. He talks about the potential that everyone has to be evil. And he talks about people that act as agents of evil. So I think when Scorpio season comes along, and we've got all these asteroid goddesses, the asteroid Lilith, the asteroid Cassandra, the goddess Ceres, asteroid in Scorpio, all these bodies in Scorpio, of course, that can play out either as the potential for transformation, for acting as an agent of transformation to support and help others. You know, Scorpio, there are other signs as well that have this capacity, but most certainly Scorpio is such a strong sign, even though it's a feminine sign, and it takes us very deep within. Scorpio is one sign that has that, it has that level of intensity and capability to walk through the shadows of life, you know, the darkness. It's not afraid of the darkness. It can face and confront the more darker passages or narratives or stories or experiences of life. And it can be the very agent that somebody might need, because they are going through a death passage, as it were. I remember when my dad transcended, and it's a very long story, but I can tell you now that when it was before he transcended, whilst he was in a coma, it's the most complex, bizarre story and experience. There's so many levels to it, I don't even know where to begin. But I just remember that there was a guy that came to the hospital who the hospital called him to come. He was a guy that deals with families and individuals that have got a family member in hospital who is dying, so he just helps people through the process of grief and loss and things like that. And he sits, there's a particular name, and I've just forgotten what it is, but he came out of nowhere, and I reckon he was a Scorpio. I didn't have the chance to ask him for his details, because I was just facing death at that time, and I couldn't even think. I couldn't even see in front of me. It was like I was in this vortex, this dark vortex. I was being pulled into it, and I was just being faced with death. But my point being that he was acting as an agent of that process of death, and he was very he must have had some Libra in him as well, because he was very very diplomatic and very gentle in how he was approaching me, because I was pretty angry. I was pretty angry at the doctors, at the hospital, because, to be quite honest with you, the hospital was negligent, and fundamentally that's why my father transcended. There was an accident that occurred in the hospital, which they were responsible for. So it's a long story, as I said, but I just remember him sitting there, and he just held the space for me to feel everything that I was feeling, which was rage, pain, loss, fear, all things associated with Scorpio. I'll never forget that time in my life, naturally. But I'm just bringing that up as an example of people who act as agents of the Scorpio archetype that can be helpful and supportive, and it's like they were born just to do that kind of work. So there's many different examples that we could use about the agents of the Scorpio transformative work, in shamanic work, in death and dying, in so many different things in life. And Ceres in Scorpio most certainly is, unfortunately, is activating the deepest trauma around death and dying at the moment, because Ceres is the goddess of death and dying and rebirth. She is the mother of Persephone, who Pluto abducted, and she was the one who made the earth barren at some point, which is why we have spring, autumn, winter, and summer. That's why we have these seasons. So she made the earth barren in order to punish everyone for her loss and pain and grief, which was the loss of her daughter. So whenever you see Ceres, the goddess Ceres, coming up in an important configuration, or whether she's importantly placed in your chart, which she is in mine, the process of grief and loss are very pronounced. And they are most certainly very pronounced on the earth plane at the moment. Now, on a personal level, for all of us, what might Scorpio in Ceres mean, given it's Scorpio season and so forth? I would think that whatever processes that we are going through internally within ourselves, in some kind of metamorphosis or change, or endings, death, rebirth, it can be from a smaller scale to the other end of the spectrum. Again, it depends on who you are and what's going on in your life. But I think that the painful side could be that we undergo a very deep, perhaps a very deep journey around some type of loss. But it can also be because ultimately Ceres speaks to the ability to renew. She's the goddess of transformation and renewal as well. So she actually is associated in terms of rulerships. Demetra George gives the rulership of both Taurus and Scorpio to Ceres, whose Greek name is Demeter. So when Ceres is in Scorpio, and in this case it's the Scorpio-Taurus polarity, right? The archetype of Ceres is very potent. She's in her domicile, if you like. So matters around grief, loss, transformation, renewal can be very pronounced, perhaps for everyone who's a Scorpio, right? Because the asteroid Ceres is going to pass over your Scorpio sun, if you're a Scorpio, or any other planets in Scorpio for that matter. And the initial experience of that is pain and loss, but the potential outcome can be the renewal that can come through that, the process of deep renewal and transformation that would have a very profound effect on your soul, because Scorpio corresponds to the soul. So there is, there is there is ample opportunity to work through some very deep and painful situations in our life, and to ultimately find ourselves renewed in our path. Again, it depends on who we are and what's going on in our life, right? And Cassandra, being in Scorpio, is offering prophecy to us as well. Now, do we have the eyes and ears to see and hear the truth? The ears, in terms of the anatomy of the ears of hearing, actually corresponds to Gemini, according to Jeffrey Wolf Green. So the hearing from the intuitive side is Sagittarius, right? The opposite to Gemini. And so I'm not talking about hearing with the anatomy of our ears, because if we just remain on that level of just hearing what's going on from that perspective, we're just going, most of the things that we're hearing is just BS, is just, an intended, as I said, Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about the asteroid Lucifer being the archetype that will ultimately is trying to create the opposite reality of what is intended. So we have to employ our intuition, and Scorpio has incredibly powerful instincts. And my Venus star point in Scorpio, she has the most the most sharp, intense instincts. An incident occurred the other day. I won't talk about who or what exactly, but there was a situation where there was an individual, and as soon as I saw that individual, my instincts just told me exactly what that person was about. And so I mentioned it to the other person that I know very, very well. I just said, look, this is what my instincts said about this person. And so this person says to me, wow, I'm surprised that you're able to see that, within literally like a second. I said, well, sometimes you underestimate, my abilities in my own instincts, And that person said, yes, you're right. Perhaps I do. So instincts can tell us a lot, can point the way for the truth of things for us, can prevent us from being in dangerous situations and so forth. It's our instincts that kick in when there is danger lurking, for instance, whether it's imminent or whether it's approaching or whatever it is, right? So again, with all this Scorpio energy, we must rely on what our instincts are telling us from the point of view of what's going on in our life as well. It is a bit tricky though, because, with Scorpio, there can be a lot of, there can be paranoia as well that comes up, being, overly paranoid or overly suspicious about this or that person or so on and so forth. And sometimes it can take us into this spiraling sort of vortex of being so immersed and so overwhelmed by the intensity of our own feelings and what we're picking up on and so forth. So it can be a tricky path to navigate as well. But I think, I believe that our instincts never lie. And all we need to do is trust them. And what is one of the biggest problems for Scorpio? It's the ability to trust. That's one of the biggest problems for Scorpio, because it has this memory, this psychic imprint memory of betrayal, whether that's occurred this lifetime or whether that's occurred in previous lifetimes or both. So that imprint, soul imprint, psychological or emotional imprint of betrayal, creates this wall or perspective or belief that no, I cannot trust, because if I open myself up and trust and I allow myself to be seen and I allow someone to get so close to me, they will burn me. they will break my trust, you know. So loyalty and trust are two very big things for Scorpio. And if you break their loyalty or their trust, well, forget about it. You know, that expression from that movie where Johnny Depp says, forget about it. I love that movie. And I love that expression. Yeah, you can't, with Scorpio, it's all or nothing. It's you're in or you're out. It's very black and white. And it gets to the core and the matter of what's really going on. And these themes can relate to our own self as well, you know, in our own ability to trust our own self as well, you know, to trust our soul's journey. These are lessons and opportunities that we can grow through continuously, especially when we have planets in Scorpio, or we have the Venus star point as the head of our pentagram. I can tell you, having Venus in Scorpio as the head of my pentagram, I've had to learn many, many lessons around trust and betrayal, because my Venus Scorpio star point, she just goes in like the eagle eye. The eagle is another totem or animal for symbolizing the Scorpio archetype. You have the phoenix, you have the snake, you have the eagle, and you have the scorpion. They're the four that correspond to Scorpio. Each of them carry different characteristics and vibrations. But the eagle represents that quality of Scorpio that has that eye to zoom in. So my Scorpio lady, Venus star point, she just zooms right into the core of whatever she's wanting to connect with, engage in, or learn. You know, she goes very, very deep. And that I think she's the one that's really helped me transform the scorpionic experiences in my life in a way that's helped me grow and evolve. I went through matters of betrayal and trust and fear of being betrayed and fear of being abandoned. And I went through all of those lessons in very, very intense ways, way too intense for the age that I was at. But I've got Pluto aspecting virtually everything in my chart. And then I've got a Venus Scorpio star point. So I was given these imprints because I had to go through these experiences, you know, and I've come a long way, you know, at the age I'm at now. I'm not 20. I'm not going to tell you guys my age. I'm not 20 and I'm not 30. So, you know, I think if we can reflect it into just our own journey, our own personal osmosis, metamorphosis, transformations, growth, what we are scared of, what we fear the most, where our personal limitations are. If we can be really brutally honest about all those sorts of feelings, thoughts, beliefs, positions, where we are in all of that at this point in our life, that's when we can get the best out of Scorpio season. And, you know, planets in Scorpio passing over the scorpionic part of our chart, you know. So, of course, it depends where that is in your birth chart, because wherever it is, that area, that house placement, that pulls in another domain, a whole other level, right? So, and of course, you know, Taurus being the polarity, part of this cathartic, transformative journey and activation and energized portals, if you like, of our Scorpio Venus star point as well. That is to, you know, learn and recognize where our fears and deepest fears and personal limitations are, Scorpio, where we are on that journey, on that spectrum. And Scorpio Venus star point is, it's how can I explain it? She is the one that's going to help you really bring through the gifted side of those Scorpio qualities, the absolute gifted side, the highest side of Scorpio, in other words. So every Scorpio season, your Scorpio Venus star point is energized, animated, activated through the Scorpio planets to help you get closer to that Scorpio Venus star point from its purest form, which is to be an agent of transformation for the soul, for your soul, and for anybody else that you come into contact with, if they so invite you into their sphere. Because, you know, one of the unconscious manifestations of Scorpio is to control and manipulate others. So we are perpetrators when we do that, because we are imposing our will onto somebody else's life in order to get what we want. And one of the ways Scorpio does that is to make people dependent on them via manipulation, emotionally or otherwise, finds the weakest spot in that person and will use that very, very exact weakest link in that person to manipulate them through the power of Scorpio. Scorpio is one of the most powerful signs when it comes to manipulation. So it depends, you know, are we operating at that level? If we are, you know, then we are. But if we're not, then we are more conscious, more aware, and we are tuning into these energies to help transform and evolve our own life. Because again, that's why we are here. We are here to recognize our desires, discover our desires, experience those desires, and then evolve through those desires to ultimately come to a position where we have no further separating desires. Separating desires are not wrong. They're natural, they're inherent. That's why we were born, to experience different things in order to evolve. So, yeah, those are some thoughts that I have on the Scorpio season. So just check out where your Scorpio Venus start point is, because this can be it's very, very powerful, actually, because Mars in Scorpio, in a positive light, from the point of view of our Scorpio Venus star point, Mars is in his domicile. Mars is the ruler of your Scorpio Venus star point. So Mars has the most incredible potential here to perhaps invite or instill or help you integrate the powerful side of Mars Scorpio Venus star point, in the most positive way, to help you transform, to help you come closer to understanding what your gifts are and how you might enact those gifts in order to connect it further to the purpose of your life, let's say, because the Venus star point does speak to our purpose as well. It's what we are here to do. What we are here to do must have a purpose, right? So, and of course, Mars is the archetype of courage as well. So there's a sense of feeling energized, there's a sense of feeling more encouraged or more courageous to pursue our Scorpio Venus star point gifts and talents, awaken them, activate them, and bring courage to that. Because look, you know, I get a lot of people coming to me and saying to me, look, I want to do X, Y, Z, but I feel so stuck, or I feel so scared to step into that domain. I feel so scared to leave this behind and take a leap of faith. That's not an uncommon feeling or position for people to be in. But this is where Mars in Scorpio can really help, because it's Mars in his own domicile in a sign that corresponds with transforming our fears, transforming our personal limitations. So there's lots of great potential here, provided we bring awareness, consciousness, soul, and are able to be honest and truthful with ourselves and where we are at. It's not about making a judgment of anything, but it's actually about being aware, not about judging it in a, this is really good or this is really bad. No, just bringing awareness to a situation. Bringing awareness is what helps us see. It helps bring clarity. It helps bring meaning. It helps us understand. So awareness is a gift, and it is something that we cultivate through our journey and experiences in life. Let me just see if there was anything else. Yeah, I must bring this in. Okay. So Pallas Athena, our other warrior goddess, Venus morning star, warrior goddess, Pallas Athena, warrior goddess. See how she's in Libra? She will obviously move into Scorpio. And that happens on the 20th of November. And she will be in Scorpio until the 5th of February. So there's another deity that will be in the Scorpio feminine sign. And she is a deity that is describes the morning star Venus. And the morning star Venus is active until next year. I think it's around June when we have the Gemini Venus star point activate on the wheel, which will be an evening star. So this Venus star, morning Venus star point that is active at the moment is going to take us through till mid next year or close to that. So in other words, we're in a Venus morning star journey. And one of her divinities as a morning star is Pallas Athena, which is in the sign of Libra, trying to bring balance and justice and fairness. And then she will go into Scorpio. And one thing that I love to mention about Pallas Athena, which is not mentioned in any book, this piece of knowledge came to me from my mentor, from a talk that he went to back in the 1980s, some seminar that was given on asteroids by some guy who's not even alive as we speak. Anyway, the gift, one of the gifts that he gave about Pallas Athena was that Pallas Athena is a goddess as well that corresponds to seeing, in other words, penetrating beyond the illusions, the projections. She's the goddess that helps us remove all projections so that we can go straight to the core and truth of the matter. Now imagine in Scorpio how powerful she's going to be from that perspective. And Cassandra, the goddess of prophecy, is in Scorpio, trying to bring truth, prophecy. And then Pallas Athena goes into Scorpio. So she will give us those eyes, those eagle eyes, to zoom in and look at the truth of whatever we want to look at, ourselves, the world, whatever it is. It might just be studying and learning as well, because Pallas Athena corresponds to 9th house matters too, and higher learning, universities, book publishing, things like that. So we might be studying at this time, and she helps us penetrate very deeply into the subject that we are studying. So there's, those aspects as well, which are much more lightweight and a lot more pleasant, right, than some of the other heavier possibilities of things. So, and I think given that Mars is invisible at this time, and don't forget, will be occulted in the month of November, meaning next month, I think that's going to have a profound correlation to the cataclysmic matters in Gaza and Israel. From the point of view of our own personal journey and Mars activating our Scorpio Venus star point as Mars passes over our Scorpio Venus star point, being invisible and being occulted. Occult just means hidden. That's what the word occult means. It's all hidden wisdom, deep, deep occult wisdom that is not of the norm, that doesn't exist on the surface, that doesn't exist as everyday chit-chat. So I guess Mars is offering us an opportunity to dive very deeply into hidden wisdom from our own soul. Deep, deep wisdom from our own soul. It's literally asking us to go within, because it's in Scorpio, a feminine sign. Mars is invisible. So there's a whole internal level of Mars playing out. Now, at that really diabolical negative end of the spectrum relative to abuse of power and so forth, this will be directed in a very malicious, devious manner, for sure. It already is. But from the point of view of our own personal metamorphosis and transformations, Mars in Scorpio being invisible and occulted might just be a key to open something very profound inside ourselves through very deep wisdom. And I think that's something to work with in a way that's constructive. So I think I will leave it there, and let me know of your thoughts and feelings about this. I hope it was useful and helpful for you. I just wanted to bring something to you guys that might be helpful on a personal, individual level. I hope it is. And once again, thank you for all your comments, and thanks for watching. And yeah, hit the super thanks button again if you like this offering and appreciate it. Please show your appreciation. It helps me, to survive. Yeah, and also classes. Don't forget to reach out if you're interested in my classes and or readings. I'll see you guys very soon. Much love and love and peace. Love and peace. That's the answer. Love, peace. Truth and wisdom. Rising and raising our vibration into the Christos, Christ consciousness. Or you can use any other word, it doesn't matter. The Christ is not necessarily a historical figure in the way that we've been taught. It's a consciousness within our own heart and soul. See you soon.